Hello, everyone. So welcome to the BMA's Violet Hour. This is a programming initiative in direct response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And the BMA Violet Hour is every other Wednesday at 6 p.m. And it's designed to give visitors an opportunity to relax and connect with artists, makers, and the community through artist talks, meditations, screenings, workshops, and more. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Elizabeth Benskin, and I am the Director of Teaching and Learning at the Baltimore Museum of Art. And tonight I'm thrilled to be here with two wonderful people. Chanel Howard, who is the Fine Arts Coordinator for Baltimore City Public Schools, as well as Julia Bussolo, who is the Executive Director of Arts Every Day. And we're going to be talking about this rapid shift into virtual arts instruction in Baltimore City Public Schools. And when I talk about the arts, I know that we are coming from a visual arts institution, being the BMA, but I do want to clarify that we're going to be talking about the arts broadly in this conversation. So that includes all of the arts disciplines. And we'll talk a bit about the challenges, but also some potential opportunities that may have arisen or that could come to be as this virtual world unfolds. This is a bit of a departure for our public programs to have pre-K to 12 education as our core topic. And I want to thank Dave Issa, who invited me to do this, because I think it's so critical to talk about arts education as sort of an underappreciated and often overlooked part of the arts ecosystem in the city. So I'm really happy that we have Chanel and Julia here with us to talk to you directly about some of the issues around arts instruction. And just hearing from them, if you don't already know them, about the ways in which they work so hard to ensure that all city students get the kind of arts education that they deserve. So I want to invite you, the audience, to submit any questions that you have as they come up for you. We'd be happy to answer them as we can in the time that we have. Please be patient with us. I will monitor them as they come in. And without further ado, let's get started. So I'm going to ask each of you to tell us briefly a bit about yourself and your work. So I'd like to start with Chanel. Chanel, tell us about yourself and the work that you do.
Good evening, everyone. Elizabeth, thank you so much for having me here. I am Chanel Howard. I'm the Fine Arts Coordinator for Baltimore City Schools. I have been in this role, I think I think this is year number 4. I think we're going into year number 4 in this role, and this is some of the most exciting work that I could ever have hoped to be doing at this juncture in life. I get to work with amazing people like Julia, who keeps me on my toes every day. And above that, I get the opportunity to work with a little over 200 rock stars in Baltimore City. Those are all of our fine arts educators that are in visual art, music, dance, theater, and media arts. So I consider myself a pretty lucky lady.
And so Chanel, I know in your bio, you mentioned that you attended city schools, and I just wanted to hear a little bit from you about like what it's like to come back and work in the schools, and also maybe a bit about your background educationally in the arts, because you have a really interesting one.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. Yes, I am a Baltimore native. I was born and reared here in Baltimore City. My daughter might be Zoom bombing, guys. I apologize. You see a little ponytail. peeping in
No
over
worries.
here. All of my experience, my learning happened in Baltimore City Public Schools. I went to um, Harford Heights Elementary School, Southeast Middle School. I graduated from the Western High School. Shouts out to all of my Dove sisters who might be in the audience. And from there, I went to Frostburg State University. And I really do attribute any success that I have been able to accomplish these last few years to the music teachers that I had in Baltimore City. They were nothing short of amazing, and when at a time when I needed the guidance, they were definitely there to be the rudder. I guess that's the thing that steers the boat. I be in the boat. I definitely had that type of experience with my music teacher. So a large portion of my work, I call it soul work, because it's my opportunity to be able to pay forward all of the investment that I feel like was made in my life from those individuals. And I'm just going to take a second to shout them out. So I want to give big shouts out to Mr. Struther. He's retired now. He was my teacher at Western High School. To Mr. Charles Fun, who just retired after 45 years of teaching in Baltimore City Public Schools. Um, so I don't know, guys. I think I did all right.
Wow, that's amazing. And I just and you were a percussion specialist, right?
Yes, I was a percussion major. I was a percussion major, and so a little bit about my work too, which is why I feel so passionate about it now. When I was in high school, my first music experience, me learning how to play an instrument, did not happen until I was in high school, which is why I'm so passionate now about making sure that we have systemic and sequential arts education. Because my experience in college, I was very much behind my other my peers as a result of that. Yes, yes. I'm sorry, guys. I apologize. That's Aubrey.
No worries.
So I was able to do a lot of. I was pretty pretty far behind my other peers who had started in earlier grades. So in most other places, kids start instruments as early as the fourth grade. So imagine where I was starting in high school. I was definitely behind my peers. So I did a lot of work in Frostburg, and then which kind of paved the way for my experiences here in Baltimore. When I came back from college, I started teaching at Northeast Middle School. At that time, I had the only middle school marching band in Baltimore City. At its
Oh,
height, it was 65 middle school students that was in the band proper. So that did not include students that we had in the band front, like banner. We had palms. We had a flag squad. I attribute all that I was able to accomplish to those band directors that I had in high school that just kind of pushed me to do the best that I could. And so, which is why I pour so much, I think, into the work that I do with the city schools teachers.
wow, thank you. That is, I mean, I feel like that story is like giving me kind of chills just to think about like that intergenerational learning that's happening, and like that you were inspired by these teachers in the city schools, and now you in turn are working towards making sure that those opportunities are available for the young people in the schools now. Um, that's the kind of like deep, like knowledge transfer and like that I just think, we all want to see in this world. And I just thank you for the work that you're doing. It's amazing.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you.
So Julia, tell us a little bit about yourself and the work that you do.
Yeah. Hi. Thank you so much for having us here tonight, Elizabeth. This is a real treat. So my name is Julia Bussolo, and I'm the executive director of Arts Every Day. And the work of our organization is entirely focused on advancing equitable access to the arts in Baltimore City Public Schools. So we do that in a couple of different ways. One is through arts integration partnerships with individual schools. Another is through this amazing group of arts and cultural organizations across the city we raise a lot of money so that schools can be able to work with the BMA, the teaching artists and residence programs, and independent artists across the city, that they, in a normal year, would be able to go and experience a live play. Um, and a big aspect of what we do is really working in partnership with the Fine Arts Office at the district to advance policy that impacts schools district-wide. So that includes, we were a partner in writing the Fine Arts Strategic Plan that was adopted by the school district in 2018. And we've been a partner in making sure that that is implemented over the years. We're all in a strange new normal now. Not normal; it's never going to be normal.
Right.
um, but uh, but the district has made incredible strides, especially under the leadership of Chanel Howard, my close friend, confidant, and counterpoint, as we continue to really push to make sure that every student in the school district has access to an arts-rich education. So I'm lucky to be able to do the work that I'm really passionate about, and I'm really lucky to work with amazingly passionate people all across the city.
Thank you. And so, I would love for you to be able to share just a little bit, like, how did you come to be where you are? Where do you get that passion for the arts?
So
how did you come to Baltimore?
I would not be here. Yeah, I am not from Baltimore originally. I grew up in Pennsylvania, right outside of Philadelphia. But I would not be here without my amazing arts teachers that I had in high school as well. I did not have a lot of direction in high school until I started taking really every single art class that I could get my hands on. I did photography, I did graphic design, sculpture, you name it. I took all of the classes. I pretty much spent all of my time in the art wing of my public high school in Pennsylvania. And so that's given me an incredible perspective on why it's so important for all students to have access to the arts, and also really high quality sequential arts education that can help provide them with the foundation they need to be able to go and pursue a career in the arts, a degree in the arts, college entrance, college scholarships. All of these are things that I want my child to have, as well as all of the students in the city. I'm also a Baltimore City parent of a third grade student, so it's very near and dear to my heart and soul.
Thanks. And that's, your story is like, that's something that you hear so frequently is, I didn't feel like I had a place in school, or I wasn't connecting with school until I started taking classes in arts disciplines, and then something clicked. And I think it's just yet another critical argument among many for why the arts are so important in our pre-K through 12 system. So now that we know a little bit about you, I knew some of this already, but we wanted this for the purposes of our audience. Let's talk a little bit about this shift into the virtual realm. It was uninvited. It was rapid, or almost immediate when it did happen. What are some of the challenges for the students, for the teachers, for the system? And Chanel, I'll start with you.
So some of the things that we have been seeing as challenges initially was access. How are we going to be able to provide our kids access to virtual learning, especially when COVID first hit and schools were closed. That was a big concern. We ended up thinking about kids in terms of like three tiers. So there were like the kids that had access. They had multiple devices, inclusive of phones, in their homes. That was one tier. A second tier would have been students who maybe had um, one device, and that device was shared among members of the family. And then there was the lowest tier of students, which was students who maybe only had a phone in the house. So our initial response was thinking about how we would be able to continue instruction for those students who were kind of sort of at the bottom. And we were able to do a lot of creative thinking about how we were going to meet that need. Now, I think one of the challenges to virtual learning that I'm starting to hear from some of our instructors is engagement. How are they going to continue to keep students engaged in the virtual space? You know, it's a little bit different when you can walk in a classroom. You can kind of put your hand on a desk and maybe engage, help a student to connect a little bit better, but that's increasingly difficult across a screen. And so, like Julia, I am not trying to call this the new normal. I'm calling this our current. This is our current situation right now. So we're definitely looking at how we might be able to better engage students. One of the things that I know that we're discussing is how we might also be able to engage families around um, this distance learning that we're doing right now, and that is like one of those ways that we are attempting to engage families is by reiterating the fact that this is educating right now more so than it's ever been is really a team process, and we are doing our best to be able to tag in parents in the ring, so to speak. We're trying to tag them in so that we might be able to increase the engagement of students.
Thank you. Yeah, the access question, I find it really fascinating because I think that one of the things that really lays bare is the way in which school systems are often like the unwilling canaries in the coal mine. Like the it was known that there were issues that would cause this to be an issue, like this to be an issue for um, you know a huge number of students, right? So, and yet it's so interesting how clear it is now, I think, to a wider public, um, that there are these these issues of need, and what kind of support do students and families need in order to be able to like fully access um, their education and the students' education. So I think it's just really interesting, that how the virtual shift has really made that so much more made that so much clearer in some ways for some people who perhaps had not noticed. Whereas in the school system, I think people were quite clear about knowing what is happening and trying to find ways to support the students and families as much as possible.
For sure. And I just want to jump in, Elizabeth, a little bit and talk about that. While our response in city schools has not been a perfect response to the our current situation, I do believe that it was definitely an admirable one. So we were able to, I think the number that I just heard was maybe, I think 40 over a little over 40,000 laptops we were able to issue to students, and that number is increasing as we are still receiving shipment of laptops in for students and families. We provided a valiant response in terms of opening schools for food sites. So that was one of the major concerns that I think our senior leadership at City Schools wanted to tap into pretty early on, recognizing that um, do they many of our families do get a lot of their meals. The students from many of our families do receive many of their meals from school. They eat breakfast and they eat lunch at schools. And if they're in the after school program, they also receive supper. So uh, our senior leadership wanted to make sure that we were doing the best that we possibly could to provide that type of response to our community. In addition to thinking about, how we might be able to issue learning packets to students. So again, like the response wasn't necessarily a perfect response, but I do believe that it was a response that included as much of all of our students. I would say it included all of our students, and I think that our senior leadership is still yet working on ways to continue to make sure that we as a school system are providing as much support as we can to families.
Thank you. And I think that's such an important point, which is like, what are the schools doing what are the schools doing right? Like I think the narrative can often spin into the arena of any lapses or things that people perceive to be a problem. And I think that I really thank you for going into that, because I think that shows the way in which the system is thinking, the people in the system are thinking holistically about the students and the support that they need, and the families and the support that they need. And that this response was the need for the response was so rapid and so unexpected, and that there were some really admirable things that the system was able to do. And I think that that's really important to highlight and share more broadly. So, Julia, I'm going to ask you, in terms of like your perspective, the work that you're doing specifically, are you hearing about other kinds of challenges, or did you have anything to add to what Chanel just shared?
Sure. In addition to what Chanel had to share, I think there has been a really big need for art materials to go home with students, especially for visual art instruction, and for there to be access to some of these amazing digital tools that foster the ability to make music from home and to collaborate. I think one of the silver linings in all of this is that there's been some tremendous innovation from teachers figuring out the ways to engage students, to search out new tools, to figure out new strategies. There's just been an amazing amount of adaptation that is happening now and is ongoing. So when we surveyed teachers in the springtime, and then Chanel's office surveyed them again in the fall, teachers resoundingly said access to materials, access to technological tools remains a really big issue. And so in partnership with the city school district, we are trying to help, and we are raising funds to be able to purchase supply kits that can be sent home with students, or if students are coming back to the classroom, they can be one-to-one art kits that can be on desks and then sanitized and limit the amount of sharing that's happening in a classroom space. We're doing this with the support from MECU Credit Union, but we could always use more. The art kits were designed by the Fine Arts Department and align directly with the curriculum that Chanel and her team have been building. And then I'll also say that there's been a really big investment at the district level in some of those music tools that teachers have been able to use that I don't know that students would have gotten this kind of experience had this not happened. So one of the big silver linings is that they're learning about music production. They're learning about composition using digital tools. They're working together collaboratively, even while they're apart, using things like Soundtrap and Smart Music. So there's a lot to celebrate. As one of the commenters said, we have a lot to celebrate, and we want to celebrate the teachers who are putting in immense amounts of hours, time, energy, passion to make sure that they are still reaching their students and they are still engaging them as art makers. So lots to do, but lots to celebrate as well.
And that's like, I feel like a perfect segue. Hello, Aubrey. To thinking about what the potential opportunities there are. So you mentioned, sort of like opportunities for exploring music production, which potentially might not have been a priority previously, but is now, but through this experience is now something that can happen. I do see a question from Jill Wartzer. What needs to happen to increase awareness of the amazing work City School arts teachers and their partners are doing to show arts education is alive and well in Baltimore City schools? And Jill, I think we'll get to your question in just a bit. But I want to, but I do want to segue to that question of like, what are the opportunities? What are the possibilities that the virtual instruction offers, and how are teachers finding ways of engaging their students, through this new experience that we're in? Chanel, did you want to start?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So it's as you said, we have definitely been able to find the silver lining in this COVID cloud over the last few months. And that has included the purchase of Soundtrap. And Soundtrap was bought intentionally to be paired with a new curriculum that we were able to write for our students. And we did something in city schools over the last few months, and that was myself with a team of amazing teachers from all of our arts disciplines. We got together, and what started out to be just revisions to the curriculum that we were making so that it would pair a little bit better with our current experience. We actually ended up writing a new curriculum for one of our music classes, and then new curriculum for our arts appreciation class, to where they are completely paired with social justice, in addition to helping students to gain their voice in using art forms to be able to do that. So I'm very much proud of the work that we have been able to do. In addition to that, we've been able to purchase smart music, and smart music is better aligned to our students in performing ensembles for music. But one of the things that also we're looking at is the possibility of being able to resource share across the district. So where brick and mortar was actually problematic prior to COVID, having teachers have to flip their classroom so that now we're doing things more in a total virtual setting has allowed us to be able to start really thinking out of the box in terms of how we might be able to do resource sharing across the district, how we might be able to deepen the level of instruction. So how we might be able to do that even before using the virtual space. So I think that while there have been some limitations, I think the limitations have been just around us doing business as usual. But it has been also pushing us to think about the actual opportunities that we have as a result of having to think more globally about how we might be able to provide arts instruction.
I think that's so interesting that, this has provided that opportunity for like more collaboration between schools. I mean, that resource sharing, that's really exciting. Um, and, and also the impact on the curriculum. I think it's, I always say, Chanel, you're like one of the most optimistic people I've ever met. And I just think that like you're sort of uniquely suited for this moment because, just hearing the enthusiasm in your voice when you're talking about what the opportunities are is exciting. And I think for the young people who are experiencing it, I think going forward, there seems like there's some really exciting possibilities. So, Julia, you had already, talked a little bit about that. You know, one thing, and if you want to add more, please feel free.
If I
Go
could
ahead.
add one other thing that I know Chanel and I have talked about a lot as it relates to high school. One of the things that the district has continued to struggle with is being able to offer classes beyond just the introductory level classes within fine arts. So, for example, you take intro to music and you aren't able to go beyond that, or intro to visual art. And I'm hoping that one of the lessons we learn from this is how we can think about access expansively and using some of these virtual tools over the long term to be able to really reach students that want to go further, want to pursue additional courses in arts instruction, but they're just not able to do that at their home school. Um, one of the things that we're really figuring out is that it's not a replacement, but it's a different way of learning. Like Chanel said, if you stop just trying to replicate the status quo of a classroom, what can you do? And that's a really exciting prospect that I'm just inspired to see teachers tackling and addressing head on.
Yeah, and I think that's a really, I love that example, of the ability to, to take a more advanced class, and yet you're not limited by what is being offered in your own home school. I think that's really exciting. Um, we have another comment from Jill, sort of along these lines about sort of the potential for virtual learning, and that um, under the direction of city school teachers, students are at home are recording vocal parts for virtual choir performances, practicing recorders and instruments while reading music, creating musical compositions, collaborative artwork, building homemade instruments, reading, creating, and performing stories and poems, and learning and creating dances and multimedia compositions. So, I mean, you can just see in that like the sort of richness of the things that are happening. Um, and Kathleen has a comment that the district and AED partnership, or Arts Every Day partnership, emphasize studio practice with art supplies and using your Chromebook as a tool. And now every art and music teacher has a Chromebook in their room, apparently. So, and she's saying per student. I'm a little unclear on that. But it sounds like every visual art teacher and music teacher has a Chromebook then? Is that right, Chanel?
Definitely moving more towards a one-to-one situation to where our students will have um,
Okay,
Chromebooks. Definitely, it was a necessity for virtual learning. Our teachers had to have that, so it's a part of their
right.
instructional package that they were able to do. And there was something else I wanted to mention. Um, Virtual, how could I forget about this? We have an amazing, we call it, I think it's called the Arts Learning Portal. We just changed the name over the spring. We were calling it the Virtual Learning Portal, where we've had, it's a forward facing page that has the supplemental resources in it that follows along with the curriculum that we have in city schools across all four all five fine arts disciplines. And we're very proud of that. This is part of the brain work. I sat actually over the spring with Kathleen and talked about it. Like as soon as schools were closed, I was calling her. I was like, Kathleen, what can we do? We gotta be able to get instruction to our kids. And talking to her, we were able to come up with we did a wireframing process that helped us to be able to build a pretty impressive arts learning portal. So these things are inclusive of games. It's games that we've been able to find to help support instruction in city schools, specifically for the fine and performing arts. So we're really proud of that. I think we'll be able to put the chat. Kathleen, I'm asking you to do me a solid. If you could put the chat, put the link to the learning portal in the chat so that we be able to have our parents have access to that so that they can see the work that we've started to do in city schools. And then also they'll have that as a point of access as well. So we're really proud of that. It looks amazing, if I can say so myself. I didn't build it. Like Kathleen is one of the builders on that page, but just that's an example of the resourcefulness that my rock stars have in Baltimore City Public Schools, like the way that we were all able to come together and rally around our kids and think forward. Because I think that Elizabeth, we talk about this, and that's that like virtual learning, it's not going anywhere. It's not
Mhm.
going anywhere. I think
Right.
that this is just us, this is kind of sort of like the fire drill for the future. If I can use that as an analogy, like this is
Love
just
it.
us getting prepared to be able to teach our kids definitely 21st century skills, but even into the 22nd century. So how far forward can we think? In terms of how we use technology, and all of this is yet, these are yet works, I like to call them, in terms of fine arts instruction. Last year we had planned a fine arts week where you guys at the BMA host the FYI, for your inspiration, the visual arts display that we do every year. And because of COVID, we weren't able to do that. But with partnership like from Arts Every Day, the Baltimore Museum of Art, and definitely my Rockstar Fine Arts teachers, we were able to launch an entire week of activities virtually. So, like, while COVID has been a tremendous um, propitiator of challenge, it's also provided us some very unique opportunities that I don't think that we would have had without it. So I'm very proud of the work that we are currently doing in the city schools, and looking forward to even further opportunities that we will have.
That's that's great. I mean, I think I love that, the fire drill for the future. I mean, it's just so true. Because again, it was an uninvited phenomenon, and I think that I mean, when I think about all of the possibilities, that virtual instruction can offer. I mean, one thing that occurred to me as I was actually on a call with a friend who lives in Athens was like, oh my gosh, what an amazing thing, like a peer-to-peer learning experience with students from Baltimore City and students from Athens, like just randomly came to my head. And I thought, wow, like the possibilities really are um, endless. Not to say that it takes the place um, of in-person instruction, that is so critical, but that as an addition to that, yes, it is here to stay. So what can be done with it? I think it's there's so many possibilities.
And
Um,
and it's definitely answered some of the questions that we had in city schools, because funds are tremendously limited. Like Julie and I always talk about this. It's like taking an already too small pie and trying to figure out how many more slices you can divide it into to try to make things work. One of the things that we're seeing is that some of our partners were calling us and was like, "Hey, like we have some spending funds, and here's how we think we might be able to use it on behalf of city schools." So we're not traveling anywhere, but the virtual doors have been opened by many of our partners, and we've established virtual field trips that our kids will be going on. So again, like you said, there's nothing that can take the place of the actual experience, like being in the hippodrome and kind of looking and seeing an actual performance of Phantom of the Opera. Like nothing really takes the place of that. However, getting students an initial experience at least has been an opportunity that's been afforded to us. Whereas, like, we didn't have the money to be able to purchase 79,157 tickets for kids to go to see the Phantom of the Opera. Well, now virtually we are able to put more kids into a Zoom classroom, if you will, where they might be able to at least. So it's not definitely not taking the place of, but I feel like we get the opportunity to at least whet more appetites in terms of fine arts,
Mm.
and have them see and experience a little bit more until we can get past whatever our current situation is. So we're definitely looking forward um, into the next the next normal post COVID. We're definitely looking forward to that, but in the meantime, I think that we are rallying as a community. There's an African proverb that says, "Sticks in a bundle are not easily broken," and I think that that is what we can that's what we can call this right now effort for Baltimore City Public Schools students. It's not just myself, it's not just Julia, it's arts partners all across Baltimore City that have been rallying on behalf of our kids. It's been a major effort provided by our art museum partners, you guys at the BMA, and Keandra Pryor at the Walters Art Museum, that have been rallying in a major way to try to make sure that our kids have what they need. And then also, pushing in terms of advocacy, our leadership to try to do it in a way that's to scale, because sometimes that's an issue too in Baltimore City schools. Like, we can offer opportunities to maybe two or three schools, 10, maybe 15 schools, but we have 172 schools and programs in Baltimore City. And
Yeah.
so the way that just our arts partners and friends of the arts in Baltimore City have just rallied around our kids, it's definitely something to talk about. So hopefully somebody knows Oprah and they can send this link to her, so that she can see all of this righteous work that's happening in Baltimore City schools on behalf of some of the most amazing students, because they definitely deserve our best efforts. And that's definitely what we're doing. We're attempting our best work here, as we always do, and will continue to do in city schools.
Yeah, it's so true. It's always a team effort. And thank you, Kathleen, for posting that link. You know, I want to get back to that point that you're making about it being a team effort in the context of a family and how that people are managing with that. But sort of before we get to that, I want to ask Julia, like, what do you see as some future possibilities, in your dialogue with teachers, and your own experience and knowledge? Like, what do you see as some opportunities for the future with virtual learning in the arts?
Yeah, I mean, I think in addition to what Chanel said about arts partners really doing amazing things to rise to the occasion, um, there's just an amazing effort amongst teaching artists where they are coming up with ways to make virtual residencies that have interactive supply packages. They are thinking of ways to work on collaborative performances that are then edited together at the end. And and so it really is a team effort, and the Baltimore City is just one of those unique places that just has such a rich ecosystem of artists and organizations that are deeply invested in the city and in students. And I can't wait to see some of these projects really come to fruition, see some of those virtual learning experiences really come online. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot going on, and then there's also a lot of opportunity here to engage caregivers and parents through these strategies. We don't really talk about parents as and caregivers as being the hidden treasures of virtual learning. Students are working from home, and a lot of times they have different adults in the background that are helping along the way. We see a lot of partners trying to figure out, well, how do we do something with that? they're not just there for tech support.
Mhm.
Let's figure out ways that they can work as a team with their student, or they can get up and dance and do fun things with them in the home. We it's definitely taking a look at the situation and figuring out where all of the lemons can be made into lemonade.
Mhm.
This is not to downplay the fact that this is extraordinarily difficult for parents to and caregivers to have students not in school, and the very real struggles of families across the city with having their children at home all day, every day, myself included. But I think that there are some possibilities there as well.
I think that's a really kind of beautiful way of putting it. Is like um, and now I can't remember the phrasing you used with like the parents as like, what were like the
Treasure.
facilitated hidden treasures of, you know, of, um, you know, like instruction for students, that there is another layer, right? When you have virtual instruction, there's that layer for students, and it has to be then integrated into like the sort of family system, um, in order for things to work. And that is a lot for parents. And I know that I have seen many of my, you know, I've never saw, like seen, um, so often, like so many of my colleagues' children, and it's so interesting. It's not like they don't have children when they go to work. Their children are in another place, but it's this. I think it's a really important question of sort of like the role of the parents and how they're managing, in these circumstances. And I would love to hear, Chanel, if you briefly have anything to say to that, because as a parent yourself, and of course and Julia as well, being an educator and a parent, um, that is a lot to manage.
Abs- Absolutely. It really is. And one of the things I know several of us kind of joke about is my most stressful time of the day is when I have to be the lunch lady at home. So
Mm.
I'm trying to figure out, like, did we have peanut butter and jelly yesterday? I can't remember. I don't even know. So, like, definitely shouts out to all of our parents who are juggling right now multiple roles. So it's not just, it's whatever they do as their profession, it's also them being our co-teachers right now. And so, to those parents who might be on the call, I just want to say, like, we are in it together. If you need support, we definitely reach out to city schools. There are a number of supports that we do have. We are also tapping into the social and emotional wellness of our students and our families, and we have a number of supports for our families and our teachers as well. And just to say that, like, we are definitely all in this, we are in it together. And I am interested to see the level of advocacy that we'll have as a result of parents kind of seeing firsthand what it's like to kind of be the instructional support for their boys and girls at home. So again, to them, I want to say shout out and real life example of what it's like to balance all of the things that come with working from home.
Yes. And right. I mean, so many wonderful, delightful things competing for your attention. Um, but yes, I mean, I think that's such a, I love that message that, truly everybody is in it together. And if parents, if you're struggling to, to help your child in helping them, supporting them with, the virtual learning that they're doing through city schools, please do reach out. And people will try to help as much as they can. Um, so I want to be mindful of time and sort of start to, kind of hone in on a final question. which is, you know, and this question I'm going to put to you, Julia, is like, as we know, you know, the arts are often in a precarious place in, sadly, the hierarchy of disciplines in schools. And so oftentimes they're the first to be cut if there are budget cuts that are needed. My question to you is, for our audience members who may not necessarily know, you know, but want to help, what are some ways that people can advocate for arts instruction in the city schools?
So first up, Elizabeth, I would say I encourage all parents, caregivers, teachers, students to watch carefully what is going on at the state funding level. As Chanel said, the pie was too small before, and now there's a threat of it getting even smaller. The city school district has been historically underfunded every single year for at least the last 10 years, and that's according to the state's own funding formula, because the state did not continue to increase funding according to inflation. And so it's critical that everyone is following the blueprint legislation that was vetoed by our governor in June. It's called the and really making sure that we're calling on legislators to override that veto once they go back into session in January. We absolutely need that funding. It was a historical rewrite of what education could and should look like in the state of Maryland. But it is under significant threat right now of not being passed and just being dead in the water. So please make sure you reach out to your lawmakers to make sure that they know that this is an issue that you care about. So pay attention to what's going on at the state funding level. At the local level, we need to make sure that we're constantly reminding our friends at the city schools district in leadership positions that the arts are really, really important to us as families within the district. Show up, and if I can get the slide posted up, Dave, when you have a moment. We have a couple of easy strategies and ways that families can really work to make sure that everyone knows how important the arts are. First is to research what is your district offering in terms of fine arts here in the city school district. We know that arts are not equitable across all schools district-wide because of funding. And it's important that advocates have some data in their back pocket that they can rely on when they go and talk to leaders across the school district. So make sure you educate yourself, figure out what's going on. The state of Maryland requires all districts to provide instructional programs in visual art, music, theater, dance, and media arts every single year. It is a requirement of the state. So this is not a feel-good. This is not something that is a nice to have when the budgets look good. This is a state mandated requirement. It is also mandated and expected at the federal level under the Every Student Succeeds Act. Next, show up to school board meetings. They always have open comment time. You can sign up really easily through the School Board of Commissioners website and just show up. Bring some artwork. Bring ask your student, or if you're a student that's listening in tonight, just show up and let them know why you value it so much. And Kathleen's pointing out that there's a pivotal board meeting coming up on October 13th at 5 p.m. Right now, all of those board meetings are virtual, so you can attend really easily from your couch in your PJs. It's a great way to understand what's going on. And a lot of times, especially if it's a light business kind of night where there's not a lot to discuss, you can get some airtime. Um, Also, the district will hold budget forums uh, probably beginning in November, December, and going through February and March. This is a great opportunity to once again show up. These are not always super well attended events, so you can get airtime with Dr. Sanalisis, our superintendent, or with other city school officials. Bring your research, bring your evidence, but bring your stories. Bring really talk about why the arts are so impactful to you and why they are important. And the last is talk to other parents, get together, reach out to us at Arts Every Day. We are going to be working on a student leadership group to be able to organize student voices that will be ready to go all throughout the year, and talk about the importance of the arts, talk about data, talk about research. We're also looking for families and caregivers and parents that want to get involved and be really important spokespeople when it comes to advocating at the local and state level. I can share my contact information through the chat, maybe through if Dave's able to post it. It's just Julia at artseveryday.org. And so it's really important for us all to be very, very vigilant, especially this year, because Elizabeth, you're absolutely right. The arts are seen as something that is kind of the icing on the cake and not the cake itself. So make sure you stay involved. Jill Warzer also, thank you, Jill, posted a link to learn more about the Maryland Blueprint. Um, Please help us at the state level and the local level in making the case for why the arts matter.
Thank you so much, Julia. That's such important information, and I really thank you, for all the work that you do, and just the advocacy is so critical. Um, we could go on forever about the benefits of the arts, and it's not just about participating in the arts economy. It's about participating in the process of the arts. It's about the social and emotional benefits. It's about the motor skills. It's about the neurobiological benefits. It's about the the self-esteem. There are so many dimensions in which arts education is so critical, and so I'm just really thankful that there's such a dedicated group of people who continue to push this, and keep it as a priority. So we are almost out of time. And so I wanted to just invite first Chanel and then Julia. Any final thoughts that you want to share with our audience about any of the topics that we touched on this evening?
I think that a final thought that I would like to share with all of our partners would be that this, and I mentioned this before, and that's the African proverb that says, "Sticks in a bundle are not easily broken." And I think that as long as we continue to rally around what's best for our students, um, I don't see how we can lose if we work together, if we continue to work together to do those things. And if I may use this time to shout out all of my 200 plus teachers in Baltimore City, fine arts teachers in Baltimore City. I appreciate all that you have been doing and all that you have done in this time. You are absolutely rock stars within your own right, and definitely in my eyes. And we're all in this together. So I want to also thank Julia for her continued partnership, and she definitely bangs the drum for Baltimore City Schools in terms of advocacy. So without her, a lot she makes a lot of this work easy. She makes a lot of the work easy, and her continued support again and advocacy for Baltimore City Public Schools Fine Arts. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much, Elizabeth and Dave, for helping us to be a part of the Violet Hour. And if there's anything that you guys might need, please don't ever hesitate to reach out.
Thank you, Chanel. And Julia, final thoughts.
I would just say keep sharing the story of why the arts matter. I think that's going to be really critical this year as we move into precarious times at every single level. Let's really celebrate the amazing work that's going on in our schools, that's being spearheaded by our fine arts teachers and our arts partners. Just share and reshare. Tag city schools every time you share on social media. It's a really powerful tool, and I think we don't celebrate the amazing things that are happening enough. And just thank your arts teachers too. Just let them know that they are appreciated and that they are seen. Um, and feel free to reach out if you would like to talk more about advocacy.
Thank you, Julia. Yes, I love that. And thank you, yes, to all of the teachers. You are doing amazing work, and it matters. And I'm in awe of everyone who's contributing to this effort to make sure that young people have these experiences. So I will say, just thank you so much to both of you for joining me in this conversation. I am so excited to be able to have this in like a public forum, because I feel like so much of our work and so many of our conversations are kind of behind the scenes, and I love putting all of them out in the open, and I hope we have more. And I thank you so much for the work that you do. And it's always, it's a pleasure to be working with both of you. For the audience, if you hadn't met or known either of these individuals before, now you know. I just want to say thanks, because it's from a museum perspective, we can act as a partner, but seeing some of the incredible work that you do, I'm in awe of it. So thank you. And thank you to everybody who joined us. We really appreciate it. We appreciate the questions. We appreciate the information that you shared, and the shout outs. Really, really happy to have you here. Thank you for sticking it out with us. So before I go, I have a couple of things to share. I do want to let everybody know that the BMA does have free art materials that we hand out twice a week. So if this is something that you're interested in, please do come by. We do it twice a week on Sundays. It happens from 1 to 4 p.m. at the museum as part of our Free Family Sundays at Home program. And on Fridays, it happens from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at our satellite location at Lexington Market. So if you or anybody you know who is interested in that, please feel free to come by. We would love to have you come get some materials and get creative. And then finally, I hope that you'll consider joining us on Thursday, October 22nd, for the BMA Signature Conversation Series, which is the necessity of tomorrows. And it's going to be featuring the founder of the Me Too movement, Tarana Burke, as well as conceptual artist and political activist Nadia Tolokonikova in a live conversation and Q&A. This will be moderated by New York Times culture writer Jenna Wortham. And the evening will also include a performance by interdisciplinary artist Jojo Abbott and a showing of short films from the BMA screening room. So be sure to tune in at 6 p.m. on Thursday, October 22nd on Facebook Live and YouTube Live. So again, I thank everybody. Have a wonderful evening. And please take care, stay safe, stay healthy. Good night.
Thank you so much, everyone.